What's up, YouTube? Zach here again with another review. Today we're going to be doing a review on the Buck Vantage Avid, and I'll give you my thoughts and my overall what I like, what I don't like review. Just a general review. So let's get into it. So this is the Buck Vantage Avid. Pretty cool knife. I've had this one for about 9 or so months. It's a really great knife. It really is. I would say it's probably one of my favorite knives I've ever owned. And just kind of getting into technical specs of things. The overall weight of this knife is 2.3 ounces, which is really not that bad. Considering that, the first thing I look at is how heavy the knife is when I carry knives. I generally don't try to push my knives over the 4-ounce limit that was installed by the Nothing Fancy, or the Nothing Fancy rule of thumb, which is great. But I really just feel like this knife doesn't really weigh all that much in comparison to some of the other knives out there, or some of the other knives that I own. And really, that really saves it as far as the aspects of ounces goes for the everyday carry kind of person who's carrying it every single day. I just feel like it pushes it into a whole new realm, which is great. One thing I will say about it is that it does have a really great deep carry pocket clip, which is nice. I did take the screws off the back, and I took the clip and I actually bent it in my awesome vice grip over there, and made it made it a lot stronger than it was when I got it. It wasn't that it was bad when I got it. I just wanted it tighter. I like my knives, like when they slip in my pocket, that they're not going anywhere. So, in my opinion, I really just like the overall knife appearance. Too, that's a kind of a wow factor. If you look at the knife, you see the scales on it, the diamond wood handles. The diamond handles are pretty awesome because basically diamond wood is it's wood that's been resin infused and then compressed in a big hydraulic press. So they lay layers of the wood and then they resin infuse the layers, lay them on top of each other, put them in a press them together, and then they take them and they put them in a CNC router and then they contour the handles. So it actually shapes the whole handle, to better fit the knife. And I mean, it really just changes the whole look of the knife, because there's so many knives out there that already look so similar with their black on satin, or black on black, or black on gray, or gray on gray look, and it just like really breaks up the monotony of looking at knives when they have really cool textured handles. And these handles are pretty awesome because they're pretty wear resistant. I have found that I didn't really have any problems with the handles, especially with like the sweat or with a wet environment. I've used this knife in both, and in dry, hot, wet, cold. I really haven't found that it's difficult to hold this knife in any fashion, which is nice, especially when you think about the contours of the handle. A lot of people give hits on the knife because the texture of the handle is so slick, but I find that it's not that bad. I find that the texture is slick, but it's not as slick as you would think. There are knives out there that obviously grip better than this knife, but I feel like it doesn't hinder the knife in any way, or make it less usable. So I really feel like if you're going to go for a knife, you should go for one that has really good aesthetics. And this is one of those knives I feel like that has that, and it really does. When I pull it out, or I've pulled it out before, and people told me, "Oh man, that's a really cool looking knife," and I say, "Yeah, I know, it's pretty awesome. It's because the handles, especially when I ask them like, oh, why do you think it's cool?" And they're like, "Oh, I just really like the handles. They're really cool." So, I mean, if you take it for granted, I just feel like it's a lot better than the G10. The G10 handles, I mean, not better than G10, but looks cooler than G10, and the textured stuff. Maybe micarta and all that can change the, can also, I like micarta handles on knives too. So just saying, for what you're getting for 30 bucks, it's not bad. I got mine actually. I guess I'll talk about that. I got mine for 30 bucks on Amazon, um, or $32 or whatever plus shipping. I know that on the Buck website, I think it's somewhere in the $60 range for these knives. I think that's absolutely outrageous. So try to see if you can find it cheaper elsewhere, and you'll do a lot better. So yeah, just try to find a better place to buy yours. And anyways, yeah. So next thing we have is the blade. So the actual blade itself is made out of 13C 26 Sandvik steel, which is a very rust resistant, razor sharp steel. It takes an edge really, really, really well, and Buck did a really great job of manufacturing the blade. It does have striations like on the lesser models. Hold on. So on the this is the Buck Vantage Select model, and on this model they actually have striations on the bottom from just the process of the grinding process of making the blade, and they didn't really take the time to uh, polish these or make them look any better. And I just feel like when I was looking at these when I was going to buy this knife, I looked at this and I wondered if the sacrifice of getting this because it's cheaper outweighed the fact that there's just more time spent on this blade on the Avid. So I'm really glad that I ended up going with the Avid over the Select, just because when you're comparing nickels and dimes, yeah, you're spending a little bit more money for the Avid, but you're getting so much more than just the Select model. The diamond wood handles are very resistant and everything. The Select is good; it still is a great knife. It's just, yeah, I just feel like there's more offered here in the Avid model. So, just kind of a comparison. I'll keep this guy in the background. I got more to compare, but basically, like the finish on the blade's really smooth. You really can't feel the striations or anything. You can see that they're there, but they're not really that noticeable when you touch them, which is good. So I find that it deploys really, really well as well. I didn't have any problems with it or issues when I took it out of the box, other than the fact it was a little dirty from the factory or whoever boxed up the knife and sent it to me. There was like some dirt and debris in here, and as well with this Buck as well. When I got it in the mail, this is going to a friend of mine. This is not mine, but this will be his. And anyways, when I got this one in the mail, which I ordered, it had debris inside the whole mechanism, and it actually like you could actually hear it when you moved it. There was like a crackling sound. So I had to take both these knives apart, or I took this one apart first when I first got this knife, and it was not fun to take apart. So that's one thing that I didn't like about this knife is if you're ever going to clean it, it's really hard to take apart. It's just one of those things that you got to be mechanically inclined to want to take a knife apart and put it back together. And I am mechanically inclined, but I also, I like my knives to be simple to work on, and that's one thing I feel like Buck could really improve on, figuring out a better way to make these handles better, or not handles, make the components of putting the knife together a lot simpler, so that way it's easier to clean in the long run. But it doesn't really change the factor of me liking the knife. Yeah, so components wise, it's not that big of a deal. They were smart enough. They used the same in each screw as a T6 Torx bit, and so you don't really need any other tool other than that T6 to take the whole thing apart, which is really great. As far as some manufacturers who use different size for different things, different size Torx bits for each one. So each one varies in its own right, but for the most part, it's pretty solid. So another thing I like about the Vantage is how thick it really is. If you look at the blade, I mean, I don't have the specs on how thick the actual blade is, but it is relatively thick. I would say it's closer to a quarter of an inch. I mean, not exactly a quarter of an inch, but it's thicker than most knives, which is really, really nice, because a lot of knives you get and they're thinner, They don't quite have as much girth as I would really like on a knife, at least a folder. And so when I saw that this knife was actually really that thick, it really got me excited to see what it was actually capable of. And I have actually taken this knife and used it for different things like thumping around on it, just to see, what it would be like to actually baton a little bit of wood. It's really thin stuff, and it does really well. And I think honestly, if I pushed it, I could probably go thicker. I really wouldn't, because obviously you shouldn't do that with a folding knife. If you're going to do that, you should get the right tool for the right job, or at least in my opinion. But if it had to fill that role, it probably could. In a last ditch emergency stance, so survival situation. The overall knife, I would say, is actually the perfect length. I would say that I'm really glad that I didn't go with the bigger version. There's a larger version of this knife that is, I want to say it's at least, I think this one's like at least like right around the 6-inch mark for length. I think there's an 8-inch version. It's a bigger version and I know they have it in the Select and the Avid and the whatever. They have like 3 different models that range, and I'm really glad that I went with the smaller one, because in my line of work, or in my everyday usage of knives, I really don't have the capability to pull out like a large knife and just open up boxes or whatever. I feel that this fits the role of like the everyday carry knife very, very well, and it does it beautifully, and it's not so aggressive. It's not a tactical blade where you pull it out and somebody will see you carrying like a tactical blade. All of a sudden they're just kind of like, oh, I don't know. They don't really want, you shouldn't, when you pull a blade out and you had to use it in public, you don't want to scare people. And I think this is one of those kind of knives where you can pull it out, use it, and put it back in your pocket, and nobody would really care that you actually were using it, because it doesn't look super mean and aggressive. It's just a straight up folder. And that kind of goes back to the fact that I love the fact that it's a plain edge. I hate serrations. I hate the fact that companies still do that half serration thing. I feel like plain edge does it all. I mean, really, unless you're cutting up in boxes every single day, or you have a job or need a utility blade that has serrations, I really don't feel like these blades should ever come in serrations. And I'm really glad that Buck is straight up about that, and they didn't put serrations on this. If you like serrations, good for you. I personally find them completely annoying and they get in the way of any cutting task I like to do. Making feather sticks or whatever. I just feel that the plain edge version is absolutely outstanding, and it's nice. The great thing about it, I kind of go back to we're talking about the blade again. The steel that they use on this, that 13C26, is highly corrosive resistant. I know it's not as corrosive resistant as the 13C26. The 12C27 is its bigger brother, its counterpart, and that has high corrosive resistance. And these, since they're used in razor blades, apparently the steel is used in razor blades, so it makes it extremely sharp and really easy to sharpen up. And I have had very little problems sharpening this blade. As a matter of fact, I usually just touch the blade up. I haven't taken the knife and used it until it was dull. And I feel that even if I did take it to the point that it was dull, it would sharpen up probably relatively easy, because the steel is not like VG10 where it's really, really hard. But VG10, if you sharpen it, usually the edge holds for a long time. So you have pros and cons between the two. And I really just feel like this outdoes any of the high carbon steels like the 420s. Like the Select has the 420 HC. And another thing is the heat treat on this is the Bose heat treat, or Boss, or I'm not really sure how you say it. But yeah, there it is right there with the 13C27. 26. Sorry, I keep saying that wrong. The Sandvik steel, but the heat treat on this is a lot better. They obviously take more time on these blades, which is nice. The only thing is, I know that the HC or the 420 HC has a good heat treat on it. I just wish they'd spent a little bit more time actually treating these blades with a little bit more tender care. I mean, I'm not complaining. You get what you get what you pay for, and these knives are really great. It's just, if I had to choose one, it's definitely going to be this one, because even though this one is cheaper, this is just so much. It's just finished a lot better and just feels better in the hands. It's more, it's just so much more knife. If I pulled this out and I started using it, I guess in a way I would just feel like I kind of got a little bit cheated, or maybe I would have regretted getting this one, knowing that now that I have this one, or using this one, I tend to keep going back to this one. So it's all in a matter of opinion, really. But this knife is great. The steel is great. It's easy to sharpen, easy to maintain. It's a razor sharp. Great handles. A little bit difficult to take apart. Great pocket clip. Fits in the pocket nicely. Doesn't weigh a whole lot. I mean, really, what more can you ask for other than a lanyard hole, which it doesn't have? That's the one thing I don't like about this knife, is the fact that it doesn't have a lanyard hole. But you got to ask yourself the question: does this kind of knife need a lanyard? I mean, it's not like it's going to be deployed in a wet environment that you need, or like water or whatever. I mean, you could, but it's not one of those kind of knives that you need to have a lanyard hole for. But it would still be nice to have that option. So I feel like that was one thing that really kind of lacked on this knife, was a lanyard hole. And I mean, pros and cons, and we can sit here all day and talk about that. But in reality, this knife is one of the most amazing knives I've ever owned. And honestly, I own a lot of knives, and this is the only knife I keep coming back to and keep carrying. Over the 9 months that I've had it so far, I feel like I carry this knife more and more and more every single day, and I choose it over my Spydercos and my Kershaws. And I really just feel like it just does so much, and it fills that role that I need, or that I look for in a knife, so much more than other knives. So that's just my thoughts on everything. If you guys have anything, or would whatever you guys think about the video, let me know, and I'll have more reviews coming up. All right, you guys have a good one. Thanks.